We have amazing music right in this place every Sunday. Thank you, guys. Our scripture lesson today comes from Matthew's Gospel in his great Sermon on the Mount. And these words are from Eugene Peterson's The Message. Let me tell you why you are here. You're here to be salt seasoning that brings out the God flavors of this earth. If you lose your saltiness, how will people taste godliness? You've lost your usefulness and you'll end up in the garbage. Here's another way to put it. You're here to be light, bringing out the God colors in the world. God is not a secret to be kept. We're going public with this, as public as a city on a hill. If I make you light bearers, you don't think I'm going to hide you under a bucket, do you? I'm putting you on a lampstand. Now that I've put you there on a hilltop, on a lampstand, shine. Keep open house. Be generous with your lives. Be opening up to others. You prompt people to open up with God, this generous Father in heaven. Hear what the Spirit is saying to the church.
If you were here with us last Lent, you would have heard me say that there's a neurological thing that happens when we light a match. No matter where your brain is thinking, how you're processing stuff, scientists tell us that when you do the physical act of scratching a match, that scent that comes off the match, the physical movement of the match, allows your brain to stop and shift. I think this is unintentionally part of the reason why so many of our spiritual practices start with lighting a candle. In fact, we've spent the last 4 weeks taking an intentional moment in the service of lighting one candle on our Advent wreath until we get to the center candle, the Christ candle. So this celebration of Christmas is really a celebration of light coming into our dark world. So this morning I want to spend some time focusing on the importance of light and relating how that light has a significant role in who Jesus is and what Jesus means for our world. The last ice storm we had last winter, our house lost power. Now, what's the first thing you do when your power goes out? You can talk back. Flashlight. So if you're like my family, the lights go out, and you're like, where did we put our emergency flashlight? Well, it's in that drawer. Which drawer? I don't know which drawer. So then you're trying to stumble around the darkness, find out which drawer it's in. You finally find it. But because you haven't used it in 3 years, when you put it in that drawer, you push the button and nothing happens. And then you go scrounging around for the candles because you know those are going to work, right? So you find your candles and you light them. This last summer, in one of the storms that we had, we live right next to the water tower, which the water tower in Navarre houses the siren. And when I say we live right next to the water tower, it's literally our side yard. So when the siren goes off, either in practice on that weird Wednesday when it happens, or when it needs to go off, our house vibrates and our dog freaks out and our kids freak out. But it happens to be even more of a freak out whenever it's 3:30 in the morning. And we live with our friends who live in the apartment above our house. And so 3:30 in the morning, the sirens go off. Everybody's freaking out. We run to the basement. We all get on one bed, like 9 of us on one bed, sitting on the bed saying, well, what do we do now? Well, what we do is we do what you do. We light candles. Almost immediately, upon lighting the candles, you could feel the fear dissipate. All the anxiety of my kids, all the anxiety of not my dog's still freaked out. All the anxiety of us as adults about what do we do in this moment? Is there a tornado? We don't know if there's a tornado. What does the siren mean? We don't know what the siren means. It all just kind of dissipated. And then we started talking about how funny it was that it was 3:30 in the morning and we were all on a bed together. This is the essence of what John tells us in the first few verses of his gospel. The one about the Word being there from the beginning and how the Word was with God and that Word was life and that was a life light to all people. And that life light came to break the darkness. That our long nightmare of fear is over because the presence of Jesus' light, God's light, has penetrated that darkness so many Christmases ago. A light that had the power to dispel our fear of death, our fear of God's judgment, our fear of the past, our fear of the present, our fear of the future. And as soon as we add this life light into those places, that fear begins to dissolve. That's not all that light does. Did you know that color doesn't really exist? It's really a trick of our eye. Light is usually perceived as being white, but it is in fact made up of energy in varying wavelengths. These wavelengths comprise all the colors in the spectrum. And when light hits an object, that light will either be absorbed or reflected. Some objects will scatter the light while others refract it. If an object absorbs all that light it hits, that object appears black. If an object reflects all the light that it hits, that object appears white. You didn't know you were coming to a science class. If, for instance, an object absorbs every wavelength except blue, that object appears to be blue. If it absorbs every wavelength except red, it will look red. Get the picture? Without light, our world would be dark and drab. There would be no color. That's why I love the Message version of this text when he says, "You're here to be the light, bringing out the God colors of the world." That when people see us, what they see is the God colors. Light also conditions our dreariness. John's favorite Christmas hymn is "In the Bleak Midwinter," right? Snow on snow on snow on snow. That's literally the lyrics. Every time I hear that song, I think I need to go sit in front of my light machine at my house to decrease my depression. But it's a beautiful song. How many times have you seen days of gloomy, dreary weather suddenly replaced with the gleaming light of the sun? When I first moved here, one of the statements that people frequently made was, "Listen, it's awesome because when it's cold, at least the sunshine is still out." I've been waiting 3 years for that sunshine. But when it comes, it is glorious, right? In these dreary midwinter days, when the sun breaks through the gray, it's like your soul is lit on fire for a day or an hour. How often have we felt cold and chilling fingers of autumn instantly lose their grip as the sun breaks through the clouds? On Dwelt, our stage, we had this giant screen in the center of it, and we put a fake fireplace that was 10 feet by 5 feet. And 3 or 4 people walked in the room and they said, "Does it feel warmer in here?" Right? Light changes our dreariness. There's another important quality of light. It's necessary for life. That was a lesson I learned very clearly. My second year of college, I was taking a botany class, and my professor gave me an assignment to do an experiment involving plant life. Now, we could pick anything we wanted to do to say something about what it means to be a plant. So I finally decided what I would do is I would test certain chemicals and what the results would happen if you added them to a plant. So I planted some of those seed beans, the ones I planted in kindergarten. I just replanted them again my second year of college. And the professor and I came up with these different concoctions of water mixed with things that we would add to the plant. So the first one we did was we did some water with a heavy dose of nitrogen. And then another plant got water with manganese. And another got water with magnesium. And then I thought I would be funny and put one of my little plants in the closet and close the door to see what would happen to a plant if it didn't have light. I'm sure I don't have to tell you what happened to that plant. It died a swift and certain death. Once the light is shining, there is no darkness that can extinguish it. You can throw as much darkness as you want at light, but that light will continue to shine. In fact, the more darkness you bring in, often the brighter the light seems. These candles don't seem very bright, but if we were to turn off all the lights and shut all the doors and block out all the windows, and those were our only light, that would feel very nourishing. Darkness cannot overcome light. This weekend marks the 47th anniversary of the freeing of John McCain from a prisoner of war camp. He once wrote an article in the Reader's Digest about that time that he spent in the POW camp in Vietnam. And as most of us know from this story, the cruelty and the mistreatment that he and others experienced in that prison camp is beyond magnitude. But fortunately, as time drew closer for them to go home and the war was ending, he and his fellow prisoners were given a little more freedom, which made for a very special Christmas that last year. On Christmas Eve, the prisoners all gathered together in a dimly lit room that had just one single light bulb. Think about that. I don't know about you, but I love going into my house and turning off all the lights and just allowing the Christmas tree to shine, and I sit on my favorite chair and I look at the Christmas tree, and it just feels good and Christmassy. Now try to imagine being away from your family and friends and your home in the most deplorable conditions imaginable, at the mercy of an enemy that could care less whether you lived or died. And you're huddled together with a few of your fellow prisoners on Christmas Eve. As John McCain tells it, in the midst of those dark and dreary and dismal conditions, those soldiers began to sing Silent Night, after which they exchanged these crude handmade gifts they had made for each other. In the article, he says that this is the most special Christmas that he's ever remembered. See, that's what I mean when I say that the darkness cannot extinguish the light. Light shines even in prison camps. Light shines in hospital rooms and hospice rooms. Light shines in nursing facilities and funeral parlors. That's what our yearly practice of one word has done for me. It's helped focus and shine light on a specific area of my life each year. You've heard the stories, the stats, that millions of Americans make New Year's resolutions, but by February, less than 10% have actually kept those resolutions. One reason for our generally dismal success rate is because we have this tendency, or it's all or nothing, right? We go to the gym 365 days a year, or we don't go to the gym. That's me. Resolutions seldom work because they're based on this type of person that we're tired of being and we don't want to be anymore, instead of thinking about who is it that we want to become. So this One Word Sunday, the whole purpose of it is that we set an intention for our life. That we set an intention and we allow that moment, that word, to be the thing that we're working towards each year. And just like a match, right? Start of the morning, I light a match and I light my candle and I think about that word. And sooner or later, no matter how much I want this match to not go out, it's either going to burn my hand or I'm going to blow it out. And then I get up the next morning and I do it again. And I do it again, and I do it again, and I do it again, focusing on this one word. So one of my first 2 years ago, both Autumn and I picked the word surrender, and then I had Hazel, my second child. Wasn't expecting that form of surrender. But I'll tell you, having that word to focus my thoughts and my brain during that time of transition, of having 2 children and what that meant for me, was just what I needed to make it through a really beautiful but stressful year. One year I chose the word balance. If you don't know me, I'm a workaholic and I love it. And so I set the little rock on my desk that said balance on it. And some days you would come into my office and the rock would be right side up with the word balance on it. Some days it'd be upside down because I didn't want to be judged by my rock. But it allowed me to focus on that part of my life. So whatever this word that you pick is, here's how you choose it. You determine the type of person that you long to become, the person that God's calling you to be. Take some time to think about it. You can do it this morning, or you can do it in the days to come before we head into the New Year's. Not simply do you want to be healthier or wealthier or wiser, but when you dive deep into your soul, what is your heart calling you to this next year? What are some virtues or characteristics that you're wanting to become? Create a list of those. And then spend some time with that list, thinking through what it is that you want to become, and then pick a word that drives you to it. When I was a kid, one of my favorite hymns that we would sing in our little Baptist church was a song called Pass It On. And the words to that song were, "It only takes a spark to get a fire going. And soon all those around will warm up to its glowing." That's how it is with God's love, once you've experienced it. Right? That's what we're living towards. We're living towards this call from Matthew, that we would be the people who allow God's light, the God colors, to burst forth into the world. And allow that light to shine in us and open up new spots and new colors within us. So I'll borrow a few words from Isaiah to close. Arise, shine, your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. See, darkness covers the earth, and the thick darkness is over the peoples. But the Lord rises upon you, and the glory appears over you. Let's pray. God, we ask that you would literally light us up. That in whatever gloom and loneliness and despair that this world holds, that you would use us, your church, to burst into that darkness and allow your light to shine. God, many of us come with our own darkness into this space today. Help us to hold fast to the fact that your light shatters the darkness. May your light begin to shatter the darkness that we bring into this space. God, as we pick our word, our intention for this next year, may it bring us peace, love, and hope for the new day. We pray this in your holy name. Amen. Now, as they sing this song, as we close, growing up Baptist, Autumn and I had something we used to call an altar call.
That's right.
And at the end of the service, about this point, the preacher would stand down at the front and he would ask you to accept Jesus into your heart, and you would come down the aisle and you would do those things or come and pray with a pastor. We're not doing that. Don't freak out. It's all okay. But what I do encourage you to do, if you know your word already, I encourage you to come during this song and write your word up on one of the whiteboards, to share it with the community, to name your intention forward as the community can hold that intention with you. And then my hope is that you would take your box of matches that you were handed when you came in. Notice the box is white. You can just write your word on this match. And each morning I encourage you to pick a place where you are, whether maybe your favorite place you have coffee, maybe your breakfast space, maybe your reading spot, maybe your office desk, if you can have candles at your office desk, and just look at your word and light a match and light the candle and focus your intention for this day. So come as you wish.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Sunday Insight. Wayzata Community Church is a United Church of Christ congregation that welcomes all people into every aspect of our ministry and full membership of our church, believing deeply that discrimination and exclusion in any form is incompatible with Christ's message of unconditional love. If you'd like to learn more about Wayzata Community Church, please visit our website, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or download our weekly podcast. And we'll see you in church.